So I am not able to set up my computer so that you can also see me while I'm working. All I have is my phone set up for seeing the table, which is okay. You'll still get the information. I just like to have the combo of both. So to start, for this rune casting, I wanted to actually just go over what runes are, how you can use them, and some background on them before we get into making talismans. Now, some of this information I actually just read recently and learned when I wanted to put this class together. So I am by no means an expert, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in. So for me, when reading runes, I would have them in a pouch and I would pull them just like I would pull tarot cards, maybe a single oracle card if I had a question or an intention, or I just wanted a quick message from spirit. I would reach in and feel around and draw out a single item and look at that and kind of take that information based on that definition of it. But there are actually a few traditional ways of casting runes that I learned about recently. So first, it's ceremonially appropriate to have a cloth on which you are casting. Generally, it's a white cloth. I have this pretty black sparkly cloth. And one of the traditional casts is a 3 draw, and it is a draw for the Norns, which are past, present, and future. So the Norse goddesses of fate, which are Urda, Verandi, and Skuld, which are past, present, and future. So like we might draw 3 cards in a tarot for that past, present, future, reach into our pouch, feel around, grab our stones, and place them face down, past, present, future for our reading, and then you would traditionally flip them this way to read them. Now, as you can see, and also just like tarot cards can be upside down and you could be reading a reverse, or with the tarot, your image could be upside down. But here's the thing. One, like tarot, every rune has a positive and negative aspect, or it has multiple definitions that we can look at. So personally, I never read tarot as upside down being negative. I always just turn them the correct way. I look at all of the definitions and I say, what pieces here make sense for me? What is standing out? Because sometimes you might have a card that you realize, oh, if this is representing a person, I can see that they both have these positive and negative aspects of this card. When I'm at my best, I'm these things. And when I'm not doing so great, I might see more of these traits, right? So that's how I do it. I don't read them inverted, or as in Norse runes, it is called Merkstav. So I don't read them positive or negative. I will turn them all the correct way and just read them as I see them. All right, so that's a very simple casting, just like tarot, past, present, future, putting out an intention, asking a question, and drawing 3 runes. Now, another traditional method of casting runes is to draw 9. Now, when you're drawing 9 runes, again, you're feeling around in your pouch, you're picking out ones that feel right to you, you're filling your hands, you're going with that intention until you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 runes. The rest of the bag gets left aside, and you're actually doing a little shake-shake-a, and you're casting them on the table. Now, here is how this would work. I wasn't thinking about anything clearly. I didn't set an intention when I did this. But if I had, this is what I would read. 1, all of these that are face down basically don't impact the question that I'm asking. They're irrelevant. All of these things don't come into play. These are the most important pieces. Then I would look at the center and say, the things closest to the center, and as they spiral out, are the things that are closest to importance or closest to the now, or the most intensely connected to that question that we're asking. So I would look and say, well, this rune is at the center. This is the next closest. Then I have these three face up, but they're very far away from everything else that's happening. So again, you're going to make decisions about how you read these, what the definitions are, and how they make sense or relate to your question based off of these things. So perhaps this is something that is immediate right now. This is something moving toward that I'm going to have to think about in the not too distant future. And maybe these are things that are way down the road. Maybe it's months out before these elements impact that question that I'm asking. So those are two simple forms of casting. Well, three actually, I guess, if you count the single draw. And that is the basics for how to cast runes. So I'm going to do another where we talk about the specific definitions of the runes and how you can utilize them in making talismans. However, one more thing I want to touch on before I go to that is, and another thing that I learned recently is this idea of a word, a Norse word, which was meant to describe the interconnectedness of things. All right, so it was connecting the conscious and the subconscious, ourselves with the world around us. It is a word that maybe is kind of along the lines of fate, but not exactly like something we're bound to. The word is weird, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but W-Y-R-D, and our modern equivalent, weird, is a really different definition. So when we think weird, we think strange, unusual, something out of the ordinary. But weird in the Norse term, the Norse sense, was an interconnectedness with other things. So for something to be weird was to be serendipitous, was to be aligned with other things, to make sense, something that falls into place and relates to others. And they use the symbolic imagery of the spider web is weird, right? It is all of the paths, it's making a choice, but the interconnectedness of this greater piece. So even if you are taking a single path, you're connected to that entire spiral of things going around. And I just love that. I've always loved being called weird. I have no problem with that. And now I love it even more that the root is something that is near and dear to my heart. So it's the interconnectedness of things rather than being a weirdo. All right, so our next part is actually going over rune meanings and how we can combine them to create a talisman, or which I'm kind of calling goal setting with a pagan twist, right? It's this idea of a physical object, an item, an image that reminds us of an intention that we're setting, a goal that we have, and having this symbolic picture to keep us on track with that goal. So it can be something that's short term, it can be something that's really long term, and I'll talk about all of those pieces. But the website that I absolutely love for my rune meanings and where I learned more about weird and rune casting is sunnyway.com. It's /runes/meanings. I will try to attach a link in the video to that website. Some folks in the class had trouble finding that. It brings you some weird places. But sunnyway.com /runes/meanings is awesome. The whole website is great. They have amazing info on runes. But I have used the rune meaning page quite often. So you will find that with all of these different runes, each has a complex meaning that can be found, and as I said, like tarot, has positives and negatives attached to it. So I'm going to draw out an example. All right, so first, the main point, the important thing is setting intent, creating that intention. And when I'm trying to create a talisman, I'm thinking about what is the essence of the thing that I want? So I might start with a stream of consciousness, writing out a few sentences about what am I looking for here. So, I'm starting a new job. I have some anxiety around that. What do I want to get out of this job? What are my hopes? What do I need to know? I might kind of just write out these many thoughts as they come up, and just start plotting in some of those ideas. Then I'm going to go through and try and break down this idea into more concise thoughts. So what do I really want? Like, I want to be successful. I want to feel confident. And I want to be a partner with others. So I want to be part of a community and building a culture. So maybe these are my subcategories. Then I would start looking through what runes in here meet these requirements for me to start building this talisman for me to keep me on track for this intention that I'm setting. So success, I know from using these, is this rune that is Sowilo. And it's about goals achieved, but it's also about life force and health and having a time of power, of victory. So as I said, many of these have multiple meanings. So I'm talking about success in the workplace, but maybe you would use Sowilo as bolstering your health, of finding that energy that you need to get through the day-to-day and feeling healthy in your physical body. That could totally work for that. All right, so confidence, maybe confidence is also part of the Sowilo energy, which is this power. But perhaps it's something else. So I would just scroll through. I don't remember all of these off the top of my head, even though I use them pretty often. But confidence, maybe I start looking at that and I was like, well, is it confidence, or is it just being able to grow and change with what's expected of me? And so maybe I say, well, maybe it's not confidence. Maybe it's more like new growth. And then I would say, Berkano fits that requirement, right? Or that intention, that little piece, and then creating community. Now, Ingwas is about common virtues, love, caring, human warmth, a place of home, a place that has no anxiety. And to me, being a part of a community that is free from anxiety, that makes me feel at home, that makes me feel free to move in any direction, that sounds about right. So I have these runes here, and this is the start of a talisman. You could keep them separate as 3 separate ideas on a single object. But you could also think about how you combine them. So perhaps I start with Sowilo, and then I add in my Ingwas, and let's see here, maybe just a line down, it's not perfect, is my Berkano. So this shape is now a marriage, a partnership of these 3 ideas into one symbol that I can think about and use or carry with me to help remind me of this intention. You can also use a lot of other symbols and ideas. It doesn't have to be just runes. You could use Agam, which is the early Celts writing, which is just lines that either intersect one side, another side, or go right through the middle in different lengths, and that is Agam. O-G-H-A-M. You can look up that alphabet as well. An awesome thing to think about is, again, how are we connecting these things together? So with runes, with the Norse runes, each of the runes is a letter in the alphabet. It is a word, and it also has a definition for deeper thought. So when I look at, let us say, Uruz, it is the letter U. It is also the Auroch, or the wild ox, a huge, massive wild ox that has since gone extinct, right? And then its definition is physical strength, speed, untamed potential, time of great energy and health, freedom, energy, action, courage, strength, tenacity, understanding, wisdom, right? So it has many different meanings and ways that you can use it. So it's a letter, it's a word, and it has this larger definition. And a lot of the Norse runes are items. So it might be animals, it might be their gods, it could be a wagon, it could be a torch. And some things are just emotions. Maybe it's need or the sun. There are a variety. With Agam, the letters are the same. They are both a letter, a word, with a larger meaning, but the words in Agam are related to the Celtic beliefs and the attachments to trees. So each of the Agam letters is a plant as opposed to an animal, which is usually the case in the runes. So Agam's one letter means birch tree, one is yew, one is fern. So if you're drawn to plants, green things and those plant allies, then maybe you're creating a talisman in Agam. Or maybe your intention is just related to the natural world, and so Agam is a nice choice for you. All right, with runes, looking at what are those meanings, what are those words, and what makes sense for you to use and create that talisman. So there are a lot of options. Even outside of these Northern European languages, you could use Egyptian hieroglyphs. You could use any language, Native American symbols, anything that speaks to you, finding those definitions, looking at them, and combining them in a way that feels right. That is how you're going to cement that intent and actually bring something into fruition. All right. So another thing to think about, I'm using these 3 runes. I actually pulled them this morning before I went to work, thinking about, again, my new job, what's going on, what do I need to think about, and I decided to do a 3 pull, and it made a lot of sense to me. So Algiz is about protection. It is the shield and also the elk, and it's this urge to protect, to shelter yourself and others. It's about defense, it's about warding off evil, and it's being a guardian. So for me in this past place, like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's my life. I am a protector and a guardian of others, but also I've been practicing getting better at being a guardian of myself, my own needs, and taking care of those things. I talked about earlier, Uruz, the Auroch, the wild ox, in my present stance was about physical strength, speed, freedom, energy, action, courage, tenacity, wisdom, moving with unexpected changes. All right. And all of those things, I said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do in this new job. I'm trying to roll with it. I want to feel courageous. I want to feel strength and tenacity and the ability to stand up and say, like, hey, I think this is a great idea, and make a name for myself and not feel ashamed of taking that position of power, of having that personal strength, which is hard for me to do, and a great reminder. And then lastly, I have Feyu, which is the cattle, domesticated cattle, the cow, but it's also about wealth. It's about possessions won and earned. So it's income and luck, it's abundance, it's this financial strength, it's hope and plenty and success and happiness. And how wonderful in this future position that I pulled, that it's this idea of that it's going to work out. You work hard and you are rewarded for that work. You are going to have that stability, that abundance, and guess what? You deserve it. And this marriage of all of these things was that message for me. So again, when I'm thinking about how do I want to put these together, do I keep them separate? Do I build an image that combines them all? No matter what you do, the bigger thing that I wanted to talk about was with these runes, what else can I add to really seal the deal and make it unique to me and stand out to me? So if I tentatively place these, oh yeah, all right. I like the spoked thing. It's kind of like an animal, maybe. We've got, I like that shape. So I have these three things together. I also know what are some things that are really important to me. One, when I'm thinking about this work, about remembering where I came from, remember what I'm trying to do right now, what I'm hoping to get in the future, my go-to is hawk. So hawk is a guide for me that is really important, that has been with me for a long time. And maybe I just create a symbol that is very simple over this image that represents hawk, that says, we're tying all of this together. And what's hawk's message? It's about looking at the big picture. It's not getting caught up in the minutia. It's looking at the long-term goals, but also having this amazing eyesight to see what's going on in the world underneath you. It's the messenger of the spirit world. That's important to me, of like staying connected, even as being a teacher. How can I draw in these things that really matter to me, right? So hawk is a really nice marriage to this previous intention. So this right here is a talisman. I could pull this out of the book and I could charge it in any number of ways. I could release it to the universe in any number of ways. And I'm going to talk about that next. Items that you can use, materials, tools to create this talisman. Okay, so as we're talking about items that we can use for creating talismans, literally anything you can think of is appropriate. I have this beautiful stone. I picked it up a long time ago. I love the feel of it. It's not perfectly smooth. It's a little bit rough. I love the shape. It feels nice in my hand. Therefore, it came home with me. This could be a really wonderful talisman for me. I could take a Sharpie, write right on here. I can use paint, whatever I want, to harness this image to this stone. You could also use bark. You could draw or paint on bark as something that is long-term. Of course, you could make your own talisman from clay, whether bakeable or firing. You could make your own, so you have a nice little ceramic stone that sits in your pocket. You could even put them onto a whole branch. I love this young white birch at the top where it's dark with white spots, and at the bottom it's white with dark spots. Oh, love that. But you could take a small length of this and carve into and create a small twig of a talisman in your pocket. You could also just keep it on paper. Now, another thing, when we're just building this idea of setting intentions and what you're trying to get out of this, the materials can matter. Now, I'm not saying that on this piece of lined paper, if I really put thought and energy into this piece of lined paper, I rip it out of my notebook, it is not any less powerful than putting it on stone or a branch or bark or making it in clay. It all comes down to intention. It comes down to the energy you put into it, and I can put just as much energy into this piece of paper that I can throw away and never think about again as I could in a physical object that I'm going to carry with me. So this is completely up to you. It's completely personal what you think makes sense. But as we talk about the materials, you're thinking about, why am I choosing this? What impact does it have? How does it relate to the intention I'm setting? So when I think about stone, I think about being grounded. I think about being in the earth, maybe even like an iceberg where part of you is under the surface, that you are completely connected to something. You have that grounded energy. It's solid, right? So maybe your intention, if you're trying to set an intention of staying grounded, of having that, being in that headspace, then maybe putting it on stone and having the weight of a physical object in your pocket as a reminder of, right, I'm trying to stay grounded. Maybe that's the thing that makes sense for you. Perhaps using a branch, when we think about trees being rooted in the ground, they're also grounded, but they're also growing up and reaching the light. So maybe tree symbolism is about balance. It's about being rooted in what's important and also growing up toward the light and being open to those possibilities, to that new growth, to that expansion. On a piece of bark, maybe it's white birch bark, and I'm thinking about, what does white birch mean to me? When I think about white birch, it's a soft wood. It bends in winter, it bends in storms, but because it's so soft and supple, it rarely breaks. It might lean over, but it's able to stand up again after a storm passes. That's really potent energy, that ability to bend but not break, to survive a moment of difficulty and then stand up straight again. So maybe white birch is connected to something that's really hard for you, that it's a habit that you really want to break, something that you want to change, something that you're having a hard time bending on, right? And thinking about that in a new way. Then maybe your talisman should be on an item like that. There are so many other options. So really just use your mind, see what feels right, try things, and if it doesn't seem right, then don't do it, right? It's completely up to you. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is powering up and kind of sending your talisman into the universe. As I said, you might have a physical object that is in your pocket that you carry with you, you feel its weight, and you say, this is what I'm trying to remember. You might also tear this page out of the notebook and release it right away. Maybe you light a fire and say, this is what I really want. I'm burning it. I'm letting it go. Intention. There it is. Done. And then you're not going to think about it again. You sent it, you released it, it's in the universe, you're going to let it happen. Maybe you have that wonderful dissolvable paper and you write something on paper and you drop it into water. It breaks up, you've released it, you're letting it go. We can think again about, what does the fire element say versus what does the water element say? Is my intention about creating creativity, passion, inflaming something? Maybe then I burn it. Is it about the emotional connection to things and getting to the heart of things and really being honest with myself and others? Then maybe it's about water, right? So all of those things are going to impact what you do. You could also put it out into moonlight. You could put it into sunlight. All of the ways that you can draw in that energy, there is no wrong way. If you're trying to break into your subconscious and get an idea in that is just so hard to keep in mind in your conscious mind, maybe that talisman goes in your pillowcase. If you're trying to build and grow an idea, add energy, add potential, or create a big change, maybe you leave your talisman outside as the moon grows toward full. If you're a habit that you're trying to break down, there's something that you're trying to get rid of, you're trying to stop, you're trying to change, you want to lessen, you want to remove something from your life, maybe you put that talisman outside and move as it moves toward the new moon into that place of darkness, and that energy is waning out because we want to draw energy out from that intention that you're setting. I hope this is helpful. I kind of covered a lot, and also there's so many other things you can do and think about. If anybody has questions, of course you can reach out to me, whether it's about rune casting or creating talismans. But I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully we'll do something like this again soon.